Okay, let's talk about the court of public opinion, because we do know that we are constantly being influenced by how we should feel about something or someone because of whether, it's the media, social media, the comment sections of a post.
Right.
So, do you feel you are being influenced, or do you think that you feel confident that you're formulating your own opinion about the things that are out there?
I think it's very easy to slip into, you know, being influenced. I mean, not me personally, because I think that there are certain things, but there's unforeseen bias that we just don't ever know about, right? And I think that that can happen all the time without us consciously knowing that we're doing that. So, for example, as you said, and you and I do this a lot, another thing in common, aside from Coca-Cola wearing black and loving our phones, and wearing big girl panties, is we like to read the comments
Yeah.
of what people have said, and that can formulate your own opinion on whether you're pro or negative or what you think. I mean, we were just saying, often we'll go out for dinner and I'll look at like the reviews of what people have said, and there'll be 5 people that say, oh, the food was amazing, we loved it, but then there'll be 2 people that said it wasn't that great, or it was not satisfactory, and I will believe the people who said it was not good.
As opposed to the people that said that is
Yes.
good. So that is interesting, because you look at, the Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Justin Baldoni, that whole case that I'm sure everyone's so tired of hearing about. But a big part of that case is that she is suing Justin Baldoni because he hired a digital agency, or his PR people hired a digital agency that specializes in astroturfing. And astroturfing is basically like the manipulation of those comments of social media.
Wow.
So that, she said that basically her reputation was ruined because of what they were doing from a digital perspective, and pulling up all of those old videos, and saying negative things in the comment sections. And then what you're seeing is the Daily Mail, as an example, doing full articles on the comment sections of posts.
Yes.
And therefore you're reading that and you're like, oh, well, that must be true because it's a media outlet. And so it does make you think differently about someone, because that is happening nowadays. Because we do read the comment sections because we want to know, how do people feel and think, or the forums. Reddit is a good example.
Right.
I will always go onto Reddit to get like a real sort of pulse on what people are saying and how people are feeling.
And the reviews, I mean, in our business, like, reviews are really important, right? Because there are so many products to purchase. How do you know which one to purchase?
Yeah.
So if you've never purchased something before and you look at the reviews, and then you see an overwhelmingly good feedback, you feel good and positive about that. But the truth is, like, you can't control that. There's a lot of bullying that also happens
There
on social
is.
media.
Well, bullying. Meghan Markle. Let's just talk about that for a minute.
Right.
Have you watched her show?
I have.
And did you like it?
I actually said to my husband the other day, it was shot beautifully and I liked the way it looked, but I kind of feel that there were some things that were missing. Like, she should have worn an apron when making her pasta sauce, for example. If you see me cooking in the kitchen, it's an absolute disaster. I mean, you can't even see the windows. I've messed so much. But in that instance, she was, very careful, or maybe there was mess. But I feel like, there was a lot of opinion about that show.
A lot.
What did you think? Because people
I haven't watched
people
the
are
show.
haters on that show.
I haven't watched the show, but it's hard not to formulate an opinion because there's so much negativity around her, right? Right or wrong, I don't know, but it's like, I think she has been bullied a bit.
Yes.
I think she's probably done some bullying herself, probably. Like, I think it's probably gone both ways. But if you think about the court of a public opinion, it's clear how the majority of people do feel about her. And where that comes from, I'm not sure, but it's definitely, if you want to have your own opinion about her, you'd be hard pressed because there's so much negativity surrounding her.
And I, from a comms perspective, because we have had, and you probably have had this too, where you've had a client that's had some sort of negativity. At my agency, I know that, we've had clients that have come and said we've found ourselves in a struggle,
Yeah.
we're getting some negative connotations and comments, and how can you help us in that? And then I have to go back and think, okay, what did they say? What are people saying? How did they get to this point? And I often think to myself, how did Meghan get to this point where she became so unliked?
I mean, I'll tell you when it started, probably. It was the Oprah interview.
Yeah.
Because that Oprah interview, and I'm sure if I don't know her, but I'm sure if you asked her the question, she would have done it again. I don't think she would have.
Right.
But I think that interview is where it probably started, because it felt it felt like they shouldn't have done it. And I think that's when it started, quite frankly.
And I think that you get big voices, right, in social that have an opinion or have a big voice, and people are very influenced by that too. And then they can be swayed either way.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous, because sometimes people they're a little bit like sheep. They don't have their own opinion, and they
For
and they
sure.
follow too much instead of being a leader where they actually rely on themselves to.
For sure.
To-
I think also just
to
a
trust.
contradiction of, if, they both left the UK because they didn't want publicity, but yet a lot of what they're doing now is so public facing. So, they do want publicity, because obviously if you're on Netflix, you want the publicity because you want people going to see the show. And so
Right.
there's some contradictions that are happening. So I think that's where people are probably hating a bit, because they're like, so do you want the publicity? Do you not want the publicity? Like, what is it?
If I had to ask you and say, like, we know there was this Justin Baldoni, issue, and with Blythe, can't say her name now.
Blake
but,
Lively.
But do you think that's driven people to watch the movie more?
It's for sure driven people to watch the movie more, but I think it's also driven people to like them less. I can't say that personally, I don't necessarily like him, but I will say that I don't necessarily like the way, the Blake Lively camp is handling it also. It's hard to like either side.
I think that's sometimes what makes our job so hard, right, though, because we see mistakes that are made from
Yeah.
communications perspectives. And I used to say to my team all the time, I would come in every Monday and I would show them an article, or I would show them a story, and I would say, how would you have managed this differently? Like, how would you have tackled this from a communications perspective differently? And sometimes the answers are so different. It's
Yeah, for sure. Because if I looked at both of those sides, I feel like we don't know what actually happened.
yes.
And so we don't know. We don't know what happened on set. But I don't think I would have made it so public. I would have tried to have figured it out privately, as opposed to making it so public.
I had never actually Googled any of them, to be honest. Like, I saw them on shows and I'd never paid that much attention to them. But after this whole controversy, I have spent so much time, like, going deep into the web, looking at all
Oh, yeah.
these backstories, things that I never would have done beforehand. And I've created an opinion that I kind of would never think that I've created almost. It's almost like the opposite opinion of what I think. Like, I always thought of her as a beautiful actress. I loved her in The Age of Adeline.
I love that movie. Yeah.
Begged my mother to
Yeah.
watch that film,
Yeah.
literally. And
Well, that's why I don't think things should be so public. And so, when you're thinking about the court of public opinion, it is better to actually deal with things privately than being so public with it all. Because the fact that Baldoni did that website with basically all of the receipts, now it's so public. And so I think that she should have tried to resolve whatever issues she had privately. And because you have to protect yourself, your sanity, your heart, your
Integrity.
spirit, your integrity, and your brand. You're a public
Yes.
figure. And so I just don't know. I think sometimes when you become so famous, you forget that that's also fleeting, and you can hurt your brand. And I just don't know. I just don't know if she really was thinking
I
about
feel like
that.
her brand has been hurt, to be
It has.
honest.
And so, by the way, Ryan Reynolds, and he's Canadian, and you want to, and I love Ryan. A Deadpool.
Yes, you want to hero.
Love
You do. You
Deadpool.
want to hero him, right?
But it's hard to even watch Deadpool kind of now knowing what you know.
I mean, if you look at this kind of thing, so for example, like Will Smith, at the Academy Awards, I
Yeah.
mean, he hasn't done anything since then. Like, we haven't seen much on him. He hasn't done much on that. To tell you the truth, I could recite the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's song right now.
I mean, I'd like to hear you do that, actually.
Well, actually, I could, but the truth is, Mike, I don't have the best singing sound voice, as my neighbors would, agree to. But I'm like so disappointed, and I'm so saddened by that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, why would he hit another person like that? I agree with you. It would change the way I feel about things. But on the flip side, you have Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. He ended up getting a bigger deal from Dior, $20 million deal.
And successful.
It's successful. But I actually watched that entire.
I watched it too.
Yeah. And so, rightfully or wrongfully, again, court of public opinion, you didn't really believe her, which I hate that I'm saying that. But with him, you're like, yeah, he is who he is. Yeah, he.
But also, it's interesting because of the bias in that instant. There was one clip where she was filming him in the kitchen and he was slamming the
Yeah.
cupboard doors. And I think that that's very easy for her to act all innocent. You don't see her
But she
in her
was
true
filming
self.
him.
100%.
Yeah.
But, things like that, like women can manipulate the situation sometimes, or they can be telling the truth. Like, it's
Well, men can too. I think that's the thing. I don't think manipulation is based on gender. Like, men can be manipulative, women can be manipulative. I think what's unfortunate is because Me Too was so prevalent and guys like Harvey Weinstein were so despicable and disgusting,
yes.
and everyone's kind of being painted with the same brushstroke. And not to say that Johnny Depp didn't do things that were wrong, because he may have, and we certainly weren't there. But I feel like his side of the story was like, yep, I would get drunk. Yep, I would do drugs. Yep, I would fall asleep with ice cream falling down my, while I was drooling. But she was the one that was videotaping those things.
Right,
And
so it made
felt
her
awful.
look. It made her look like she was innocent.
Exactly.
Versus him, he didn't have an opportunity, that she would have had. It was unfair, so creating an unfair bias.
Yeah.
But when you say that everything is so public now. Do we need to know everybody's business all the
know.
time? Like, I mean, growing up, I had celebrity crushes and people who I really admired, who I looked up to, and all of their dirty laundry was not aired to me.
And that's why you like them, because you were able to create this sort of, perhaps like in your mind, like a fantasy of what they're actually like. Now you actually know what they're really like.
Yes.
Which takes away the fantasy a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that is really something that celebrities and people of celebrity influence have to be very careful with. Like,
I agree. I think there is something to be said about keeping things back, and maybe just putting out there like little nuggets of who you are, as opposed to just and be authentic, but not have to be so public. Like, look at Julia Roberts and her husband. I was watching something the other day. It was the Housewives of Beverly Hills,
right?
And one of the housewives had said, Kyle Richards for sure calls the paparazzi every time she goes out, because you look at Julia Roberts, you never see her in the press because she's not calling the paparazzi. So if you want to be photographed, you're going to call them and you're going to be photographed.
Well, Britney Spears was very famous for that. I don't know if you know the story
Yeah.
behind that, where everywhere she went, she used to call the paparazzi, and they would be there because that if you sell a picture on the wire, which in our days is what would send
Yeah.
information on the wire, and every news publication
Yeah.
could pick it up. And every time someone published it, you got paid for that, the royalties of that picture. She used to do that really well. That's where she made a lot of her money in the very beginning.
Well, nowadays that it's the same kind of thing. It's more like, if you want publicity, you're going to call them yourself. It's not like they're tracking you. Nobody really cares that much. And so it is interesting to see how it all works in LA. Like Craig's, you go to Craig's in Los Angeles because you want to be photographed. The paps are like standing right outside, and You're going to get photographed, and that's, part of the reason you go there. And so I think that people forget that, like, you're being manipulated all the time.
But do you think that when I say they, I'm talking about like people who really kind of like have to have the celebrity status all the time and be in the media. Do you think that that's what they really want? Do you think they really want to be
Yeah, I do.
in the light all the time?
I think the people that want it, I think it's ego driven. And I think that if they don't have it, they feel lost. I do. I think that being a celebrity to some, not to all, is a drug.
It is. It becomes addictive, right?
Yeah. And I think that getting that constant affirmation and that constant stroking of the ego is what feeds their spirit and their soul. So yeah, I kind of do. I feel sorry for them if that's how it is, because there's different types of celebrities. The ones that live very publicly and like it. Like, I will say, what the enigma for me is like Justin Bieber and Hailey Bieber.
Right.
Because I don't actually think he likes the paparazzi around him all the time.
No, I would agree with you. I think that he is quite private.
He is quite private, but I think she does like it because she needs it for road.
Right.
And so, I think that that's where maybe the two of them might struggle a bit, because I think he'd like to lead more of a private life. I think hers is more public because of the business side of things. And I think they're a bit of an enigma.
I think it can be very damaging sometimes to be in the limelight all the time, because you lose focus of who you really are and what's really real and what really counts and what's important, because you live a very superficial plastic life, which we have spoken about before. And so you lose control of what's really real. I mean, when I had my own agency, I did a lot of tours with celebrities when they would come to South Africa, and I met some incredible people. Like I met U2, I met Bono, and I met Ted Turner, who was really instrumental on CNN, and these were some big names. And then I met some celebrities who didn't carry their own credit card, had never learned to drive a car, and these are like big names, people who have no independence of their own because they've never had to, because there's always someone to do it for them.
I mean, that's a terrible way to live, like not to have any control over your own life.
I think it almost becomes real to some people. Like that is, they don't know any differently.
I guess so. I mean, that's why you see some celebrities where, like, they've worked their whole life and then all of a sudden realize, like, we have no money left because I have no money because their manager has, they don't actually know how to manage their own finances.
I also think that sometimes, when we talk about the comments and when you talk about social media, and because it's such a huge part of our lives now, I wonder how many of us really are affected or swayed. Even those that, have their own opinion on someone can easily be swayed now negatively or positively. And that can be detrimental to a brand, I think.
Well, they can for sure, because that's why, we were chatting about this earlier about reputation.
Yes.
Reputation is everything. Like, I think of myself, I'm like, it took me, 22 years to build my reputation. I could, literally, lose everything in 5 minutes by saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing. It can happen very, very quickly. And
when I look at you as a brand, I think to myself, as I said, I came to Canada, and I immediately recognized your success and your incredible agency. But you get a lot of people who have a lot of jealousy too, who also create a lot of negativity, which is also unfair. And then you said you can't understand the insecurities that drive people to say things.
For sure. I mean, I'm sure I have lots of people that say nice things. I'm sure lots of people don't say so.
Same with me.
But so you're always going to have that. I think the big thing is just making sure that you're making the best decisions for yourself that are aligned with who you are and how you want to be received in the world.
Right.
I think that's really important. So, when it comes to the court of public opinion, I guess one of the most important things to sort of, as a final thought to maybe end this off on is, do the right thing and be the right thing, right? Because it could all be taken away so quickly.
And I think just to end on that, if I look at your microphone, it says, don't just talk, say something. I think say something that's important instead
Yeah.
of just saying something
Yeah,
for
meaningful.
the sake of it. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
totally.
Because you can just get yourself and everyone else into a lot of trouble.
Totally. Don't just talk, say something.
Exactly, I love it.